Well, good afternoon, good evening, hopefully not too good early morning for everyone that's joining us today. Um, this session, we are strictly going to be focusing on um, putting together a competitive graduate school application. So we will only talk for maybe 1 minute or less about MTM. This is mostly focused on grad school applications, so it's not just for MTM, but for any grad school that you're applying to. So as we get going, feel free to always raise your hand in the chat or use the chat function and we'll answer questions as we go. And as Verna said, she has a little bit of a cold, but we're gonna just call that background noise. And we're gonna go ahead and get started. So Verna, go ahead, introduce yourself and then I'll go.
Okay, I am Verna Rodriguez. Good to see a lot of familiar faces and names, but also nice to see some new names. So excited to have you here. I'm the executive director of the Master in Translational Medicine program. This is my fourth year running the program, about the same for Joy. I came from industry before this role. And so I had several years at companies like Boston Scientific, Edwards Life Science, a couple of startup companies in varying increasing levels of responsibility up to senior director in R&D, manufacturing, and quality, all in med tech companies. So I'm excited about this program. I'm excited to share some good insights about grad school applications. And I'm also a Berkeley alum. So, Joy, take it away.
All right, and my name is Joy. I'm the Associate Director of MTM, and I have 16 years experience so far in higher education administration. So I've worked with different populations, undergrads, strictly international students, and grad students. So the work. So the time you're an applicant through graduation, you'll be hearing from me. And I'll help you and guide your journey and navigate all things UC Berkeley and UCSF. But we're really here today. I'm going to give you one little snippet about MTM and we'll go deep dive into just applications in general.
So, our program mission specifically for MTM is to provide you, whether you're an engineer, clinician, or a life scientist, or actually any bachelor major, but mostly focused on these degrees. Our mission is to provide you with not only engineering and science skills, but also business and clinical strategy type skills so that you can take a new medical innovation idea from concept all the way into clinical trials and full commercialization. So if you want to learn more about our particular MTM program, you can find us at mtm.berkeley.edu or mtm.ucsf.edu. Both will go to the same page. So no matter what program you're applying to, though, a good application shares a lot of common elements across different programs, and that is the focus of our session today. So having read a lot of applications, what makes a graduate application stand out? Um, there are a lot of questions around this about admissions criteria. And specifically, if you're wondering about MTM in particular, we'll focus on our rubric as well. Again, a lot of common elements will be in other schools' rubrics, but for ours, we are very specific and we are extremely transparent. Maybe one of the only most transparent programs in terms of our rubric and what we look at. The rubric on our website is the exact one that our readers use when looking at your application. So first of all, your application is as unique as your fingerprint, hence this little photo. It gives us a glimpse into who you are, what brought you to where you are today in terms of looking at our program and applying, and also then where you want to go. So it's also something that we value as a personal story. And so the more that you can make it very personal about you, it also not only helps us understand if you're a good fit for our program, but it also helps us understand a lot of the app parts of the rubric and kind of judge how we think you would fit. So in terms of application materials, there are multiple elements that you can see laid across here in these arrow boxes. And the order in which it's collected implies something about the relative importance, okay? But it's not necessarily true, okay? So first, the background. Um, we'll be looking at your biographical, educational background, academic history. So those are all important. So we kind of like understand where you're coming from, things like that. But what is important to understand is that all of these elements are weighted in our rubric. And we can go into that a little bit more in these future slides. But basically, you'll have grades that you can see. We also take into effect kind of how far you've come, what school you've gone on to, what courses you've been taking, in addition to just your GPA. Obviously, letters of recommendation. Employment is really key for our program. So we highly value employment in specifically medical device, pharmaceutical, um, biologic companies, as well as the broader translational medicine um, career paths. So it could be, FDA, and a variety of other things, consulting companies that overlap and are part of the translational medicine community. Your statement of purpose, and your personal history, and just your supporting materials. So could be a resume, um, and other things like publications, etc. So looking into admissions, um, we balance these elements against one another to try and assess your fit for the program. And so, as you can see here, grades are, of course, important. Um, it's important to know that our GPA minimum requirement is a 3.0 GPA on a 4.0 scale. That is consistent across the UC system. Um, we do have once in a while admitted students who have a degree from probably typically years ago that is less than a 3.0, but it requires us to basically write a letter to approve any GPA that is below a 3.0. So typically that is only going to um, be allowed if there is significant level of employment. I'm saying like 5, 10, 15, or 20 years to where you've got enough background that is really going to add to the cohort, and also that it's enough time has passed that we feel that your maturity and perhaps the reasons for the low grade are no longer relevant, and that we think you'd be able to succeed in our program, which is fairly rigorous. So we also look at your employment, like I mentioned, specifically via your resume. Um, it's good to mention all of your employment, but the employment that we really care about is that which is translational medicine related. Letters of recommendation, of course, your statement of purpose and your personal history, and then also background and personal experiences as they relate into that material. Okay, so two areas where you can exercise the most control and creativity in your application are your essays. Okay, essays meaning what I have here highlighted in yellow. So, of course, picking those faculty or managers, supervisors who would be writing your letters of recommendation for you. It's important to pick not only people who have prestige, like I would say, meaning we've seen letters of recommendation that come from high school counselors or high school instructors. Those are not going to be weighted very well. Okay, so that's just one if it's not obvious. Um, and find faculty or managers and supervisors who know you personally because you have worked for them for some period of time. They understand your character, your how hard you work, how well you're able to remain on task, be a team player. They understand your strengths and weaknesses. Maybe they've also seen you grown over some period of time, and that's extremely helpful to us. Similarly, for your statement of purpose, you have a lot of obviously control and creativity here. Again, we like to see um, statement of purpose and personal history statements that are very personal, that really tell us about how you self-evaluate, how you have overcome perhaps challenges, where your strengths lie, as well as your weaknesses. Okay, a lot of people just completely lose sight of mentioning of areas where you want to grow and improve or where you already are improving. And in terms of the personal history and statement of purpose, think of these, we want to read these as back to front. So back meaning your personal history would be basically from this point in time in the past. And then we like to read that as a standalone document, but it should read that after you read the personal history statement, we'd like to be able to read it right into the statement of purpose. So there should not be a repeat of material in your statement of purpose from your personal history. Obviously, you can maybe refer to some of the same things. Um, but really, they are two separate facing documents. Statement of purpose, think of it as being something of what you are expecting to get out of MTM and where you expect to go and why this program would help you get there. Okay. Our admissions rubric, like I mentioned, is on our MTM website. So again, if you go to our website at mtm.berkeley.edu, you will be able to see on the admissions page and the requirements page, you just read about halfway down and it'll say, and our rubric is here. It'll be a highlight, a link, and it's to a PDF document that basically has these kinds of elements in it. And so all of the colored areas are weighted equally against each other. The only thing that's added that's not right here in the rubric is if you pass through this rubric phase of scoring, um, we additionally interview all of our accepted candidates to this point. And even an interview can knock you out or bump you up in terms of your ranking within the class of all the applicants who have applied. Excuse me. So, in terms of essays, like I said, these are two different chapters of your story. What's the difference between one and the other? Again, personal history statement, like I said, is looking at the past. So, what brought you here to the program of looking and deciding you wanted to do a master's? Specifically why you're doing a professional master's. We really want to see that you understand there's a difference between our program and going straight to medical school, or between a Master of Science, or between a PhD. So a lot of times people will use a same personal history statement, and it does not necessarily reflect very well on them if it basically sounds like someone who wants to do deep research in science, for instance. So what are the challenges or barriers you overcame? Again, your strengths and weaknesses. I can't emphasize that enough. There's so many students who leave out weaknesses. This does not necessarily show very well because we're wondering, do you have self-reflection? Do you really understand basically how it is to work in a team and where your weaknesses might reflect on that team. We really want you to know and understand how you work together and how you are looking to overcome weaknesses you may have. What sparked your interest in this field of study? And of course, MTM. Your statement of purpose is why this particular program. What do you hope to gain from it? And what career goals and how our program fits. You might not know specifically. A lot of students come into our program and they're planning to pivot. They also are planning to learn about a lot of the career paths that they don't already know about, even if you've heard about it already in our webinars. You might not know enough about those different roles in industry. And so we want you to basically tell us as much as you know right now. And do spend some time investigating through our website and talking to other alumni, because the more you have an idea, then it comes through in your application because we see that you've done your homework. Okay, some frequently asked questions about essays. First of all, can you use your same essays for multiple programs? So the answer here is maybe, like I kind of mentioned before. Um, it depends on how similar programs are. A lot of the content itself is probably okay, um, but at a minimum, tailor portions to your particular program. Some people ask, and if it's not already clear, can I apply to more than one program at Berkeley? No, you can't. Um, but to answer specifically about one of the specific features of MTM and how we are partnered with the MEng program, if you're like divided and you'd like to get into either one of those programs, we do have a new feature on the application to where if you decide, oh, I'd love to get into MTM, but if I don't get in, I want to be considered for MEng. There is a option on the application to put that in. And there's also the reverse. If you say, you know what, I think MEng might be more of my best bet because it's broader than just translational medicine, um, then feel free to pick MEng first. And then if you're not quite the right fit for that, then consider MTM. There's applications that have gone both ways. We've had kind of pre-med students who really wanted to do more engineering and went in for MEng bioengineering, and then their application didn't um, read that strongly for MEng, and they were excellent students in MTM. And then there's also the reverse, for a variety of reasons. Students who might want to do climate or food science, they're not really dedicated to focusing on medical products. It'd be better to do an MEng program, for instance. Okay, other questions. How long should the essays be? Typically, what we like to say is 1 to 2 pages each. I highly recommend that you do not go beyond 2 pages. It's going to be too much for the readers, and you really should be able to prioritize what you want to say and take the time to make your essays concise. So that means no more than 2 pages for each of those documents. And then how should you address poor grades? Um, this is really important, okay? And it can really make the difference with some students of whether you get in or be considered at all. Make sure that you address them in your personal history statement, okay? And then, of course, showcase success in other areas, whether it be work, volunteering, or whatever. But don't just think, oh, I got a 3.0, and so so I'll get in because I got good, showcasing other areas. Let us know if you know that you didn't get good grades in, especially in any of the science, math classes. Um, because those are the ones that our readers are going to be focusing on. So even if you got a passing 3.0 or a 3.3, something in that range, if you show low GPAs in your science and other classes, then you will be scored lower on the rubric. I've seen that happen with, especially with faculty graders that are used to reading lots of applications. That does not, um, they don't miss that kind of detail. Okay, so tips for writing your essays. Um, one thing that is important is that you want to be organized. And so what you want are clear, concise paragraphs. We realize that there's a lot of chat GPT usage, um, and that is going to happen. That's kind of what a lot of us are using these days. But remember that what is important is even if you're using chat GPT or something, um, you need to make sure that you use a tool like that back and forth and are able to craft something that is in your authentic voice. Okay, because an authentic voice is what comes through by our readers. It's not going to be, downscored if there are small grammatical errors. We get students from all around the world, um, even that are, have an excellent use of the English language, but obviously there's different utilization even within the English language around the world, whether it be UK or which is obvious, but lots of other areas. So please don't worry about things like that. We really value your authentic voice. It really comes through when you spend that time. Um, Get to the punchline early is important. Obviously, that's why I emphasize no more than 2 pages for each of these. It's also important to note that submission of any false or misleading information of any kind in support of an application for admission can result in permanent cancellation or rescinding by the provost and the dean. So it's the responsibility of you, all of you, to submit a statement of purpose and a personal history that has been written exclusively by you. Okay. Um, it's also important to not ask for other students that are in the program, not ask for their personal history statements or statements of purpose. Why? Because those are very private. We're asking you to write private things, personal about yourselves. So that's number one. It's private to them. We don't share it with people other than people that are reviewing these applications. And also, of course, we want it to be your voice. And so it's not going to help you or help the program or anyone else if you are not utilizing those documents in that way. So narrate style can set you apart. That's definitely true. Um, Avoid resume dumps because that isn't happening. And that that isn't helpful. And we'd like you to upload your resume. That really gives us an easy timeline when we're looking to things like when did you work, how many hours, etc. Write like it's two different chapters. The essay should tell a different part of your story. Like I said, back to front, looking from the past to present day to the future is how it should read when you're reading both of them as a reader. And then edit, 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 and don't forget to ask others to read it too, friends, family, etc. And now I'll hand it off to Joy.
Okay, rest your voice, Verna.
Thank you.
We'll go from here. So let's talk about letters of recommendation. Like this is your chance for someone else to tell your story, right? So the more that they know about you, the more they're able to support other aspects of your application. So you should actually really curate your choices, right? Highlight different facets. Some people might know you in different capacity. So you are definitely going to be playing like an active role in this. Don't just email someone and ask them for a letter. Send them your application materials. They'd don't know you as well or only know you in a certain facet, if you send them your essays that you've been working on, it helps them get to know you a little bit better and help craft that story. So you have more power to influence the qualities of this of the letters than you think. So here are some oh, like letter archetypes. If you ask a professor that you were in their class, you got good grades, and you don't know them very well and they don't know you, do not ask them. We know what grade you got. It's on your transcript. That is a waste of a letter for you, right? Um, but if you worked in someone's lab and you helped develop new lab workflows and you were, showed your leadership experience, those are things that we want to know about. Those are things that, aren't on your transcript, right? Those are things that aren't necessarily on your resume. That's something that this letter of reference or recommendation can really um, play an active role in showcasing that for you, right? So if you're kind of like looking like, I don't know who I should ask, if if you kind of think it, if this were like a job interview and your letters of reference, like pick people who know you and that can speak to your strengths. Don't pick people that, signed off on a time card, right? So if you look at that analogy. So let's go through some FAQs on letters. So who should you ask? So people that you've worked closely with, supervisors, PIs, obviously not friends or families, but I'll say that because people still do that. Um,
Oh, I,
are
oh, I like to also chime in because we've had
yeah,
people also. It's important, like people you've worked with closely, but for folks who where you're perhaps coming in is a manager, don't ask people who are reporting to you. So we've had folks who run their own company or whatever, and then they'll ask managers who report to them. So that's also not going to go very well. Thanks.
yeah. So remember the review committee, the first people that are reading your application are faculty, right? Um, and so those committee members tend to prefer academic recommenders, but we also recognize this is a professional program. We would love if you're trying to say like, okay, I have three, how should I balance professional versus academic? I think it really depends on if you're straight out of undergrad or not. If you're coming straight out of undergrad, you're probably going to have more academic recommenders. So you don't have as much work experience. And then the more work experience you have, that becomes increasingly more important and tells more of your story. So you might have like one academic and then two professional le letters. Um, Another question is, can I submit a letter on your recommender's behalf? And the answer, if you didn't know, is no. No, you can't. In the system, when you're going through it, you will be entering the names and emails of your recommenders, and then the application will automatically send an email to that person, and they have a portal to upload their letter to your application. So there's nothing that you need to do on behalf of any of your recommenders. It should all be good.
Joy, I
Next
know I had
question.
something.
Yeah.
There was someone who had asked about if they have a recommender and then they've already selected them, but then they decide, oh, that person can't do it. They want to put someone else
Mhm.
in. Is that easy to go back and do in
Yeah,
their
that's just in the application portal. So you can exclude that person and input a new name.
okay.
If for some reason you're having trouble with that, reach out and we'll help you.
Hmm.
Um, when you are choosing your recommenders in the portal, there's like a box you can check where you waive your right to see the letters. I'm really not sure why they have this option because we always tell people, yes, you should waive your right because we want them to be open and honest and also It just seems we're kind of a little skeptical of letters that have not been waived. Okay. Um, like why did you need to see this? Did you not trust them enough to submit a letter on your behalf? Um, if you really want to see it, just email them after. Just don't let us see it through the system. Okay.
Mhm.
Um, and then should it be on letterhead? If at all possible, yes. It makes it look more credible and official when we get a letter that's on either company letterhead or, under your university letterhead. When we get ones that are just on like just looks like a plain white sheet of paper, we're skeptical of who wrote this, right? Did this applicant write their own letter and then just sent it to them and then that person uploaded it? Maybe they just put in a fake email address. Like, how do we, like, it just makes it look more credible and doesn't raise as many questions. So, some tips for requesting letters. Request it early. If you are planning to submit um, to any up grad schools this upcoming year, you should already know who your recommenders are, right? You want to request them early. You want to give your recommenders the courtesy of giving them ample time to write a thoughtful letter. Maybe you start that conversation and they want to chat with you. Everyone's busy. You've got to find time, right? So we want make request them early. That'll be one of the biggest helps to you. And then, as we talked about, help them help you, right? Help me help you. um, share with them your essays. Remind them of, like, especially if it was like years ago, if you've been out of school a while and you're reaching back to out to a professor, like remind them of your unique contributions and skills, right? Obviously, tell them what program you're applying to, but maybe that's not obvious because every year we get recommenders that say, we highly recommend them for different university, different degree program. And that's cool that you're applying to many programs, but it just it just doesn't come off as well, right? Just when you're writing your letters, like I'm really going to use this PhD program at XYZ University to hone my skills, blah, blah, blah. And we're like, that's great. So why are you applying to MTM? Right? um, and then also waive your access. If you really want to know, talk to your recommenders offline. Um,
Okay.
yeah, so there's that. Let's go on to your resume. I'm sure you all have done a resume by this point, right? So it's just one part of your story. It's a document that actually really helps a lot of the committee members review. So we're like, okay, they graduated in this time, and then wait, when did they work at that company? When did they do this research opportunity? Right? It's something that we can reference back to quickly without trying to piece it all together from the rest of your application. Um, but also, just as you would tailor any resume to a job you're applying for, tailor your resume to the programs you're applying for. So the more in line your work experience framework is to either the MTM or any other programs you're applying to, the better. So, and again, 1 to 2 pages. No one needs to read more than that. Even Verna's resume is still 2 pages. Okay. um, so, international students have usually some more questions about um, what they need to do. So, if you studied your undergraduate degree is in a country where English is not the official language, you will need to submit your TOEFL or IELTS score. Okay. It's only not required if you completed at least 1 year of coursework in the US. Um, and then as well, if your grades are not on a 4.0 scale, which we know some universities, even within the US, are on like a 4.3 scale, right? Convert your grades if they're not on a 4.0 scale. Um, and if you have any questions of what that looks like, if you go on like the Wes website, they have a GPA converter tool that you can use that's really helpful. Um, we have that linked on our MTM website if you're like, where is this Wes? Who is Wes? And what does he want? Yeah. um, you can use that service on their website and that GPA converter on their website is just a free tool. So,
And you also don't need the WES official one when you're applying, but depending on your home country, you might need it afterwards, after you're admitted. So,
all right. So, last few things. This is our top tips. Ready? Start early. Y'all have better started your application to wherever you're applying to. um, ask for help. I'm sure each of you have a big support network. We are not meant to do life in silos, right? So ask for help. People that know you, that you trust their evaluation or you trust their, reading skills to look over your application and help you hone it, right? Really focus on the parts of that you can control, right? Your transcript, that's set in stone. Nothing you can do about that. Even like your work experience up until now, you can curate how you write it, but you can't work somewhere else between, I mean, I guess you could between now and January, but right, it's like that focus on the things you can control, like your essays and your letters. Make sure everything that you do and double check that all your materials are tailored to that specific program. Um, and know and communicate your why. Why do you want to be in this program? And then what are you going to be using this program for? How is this program going to help you in your future? Um, so this really ties all the pieces together that we've gone over. Okay. Um, so there usually are some questions about application fee waivers. Um, application fee waivers can be found on the UC Berkeley Graduate Division website, and it's usually for US citizens and permanent residents, or there's ones for financial need or program participation. So MTM itself does not provide any application fee waivers, but if you are part of certain groups um, or you come from certain backgrounds, you may be eligible. So check on the graduate division website. And then lastly, if you want to get an inside scoop of what it's like to be an MTM student, we have four incredibly knowledgeable, beautiful, wonderful, kind human beings that are our student ambassadors. So if you're on our website, you can set up one-on-one 30-minute sessions with them. And then if you have any more questions, we do have office hours with an MTM admissions advisor, aka me. So I set up two different times. So you can just like drop in during that like 3 hour time frame. You don't have to drop in like right at when it starts. And I will answer any last minute questions you have so that you feel like you're submitting your best self to the program.
okay.
Yeah.
So we are ready for Q&A. I'll start with the ones that we already have in the chat. Um, but I think I'll go to the last slide first, just so you have it in front of you. So if you have not already, then it's still, of course, not too late. You've got about a month. Start your application today. Of course, email us anytime with questions as they come up. So with that, let's see, Nima asks, they've already sent their rec letters. Um, as is it mentioned in the email that's sent to the recommenders to write with a letterhead? Do you know, Joy?
I don't believe it is. Um, but you can communicate that with your
Yeah,
recommender.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Usually it's kind of known, but definitely I would communicate it to the recommenders because I would just make it stronger. I know Santiago's got their hand raised, but I know these other ones popped up before. So um, Helen asks, one of their references does not have an official work email as their hospital does not provide institutional accounts. Will this pose a problem? I don't believe so. No, the
We
email is
don't
not a
see the
problem.
email address, Helen. We just see the letter itself.
Yep, yep.
So,
Oh, is that right? Because on the application it says highly recommend to use official like institutional accounts. So I was like,
Oh,
oh gosh.
yeah, I think that is true. But I think once we get the application, like when we go in and look at materials, I
yeah,
can go in and see
Oh,
like
okay.
which email address you sent, but I have a different view than the readers themselves.
yeah, yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
But the
It's
other
about,
two has
The other two
official
will
like the
just see their letters as like a PDF.
okay. Great.
yeah.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Mhm.
And then Sana had a question, and probably Joy, you could answer this, is because I think it's a good question. So how do they, or do they need to calculate their own GPA if they went to one university for say 1 to 2 years, and then another university for 3 to 4 years? How do they go about doing a GPA estimate?
So, which one did you graduate from? That's the one we want to know. Because usually, even if you took classes at, say, like a community college and then you transferred to University of California institution, your degree is not from the community college. Your degree is from University of California blank, and that's the GPA we want to see.
Um, and then I'll switch to Santiago, please.
Can you hear me now? Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you, guys, for the whole information session. Hope you get well, Verna. I have
Thank
a quick question about letters of recommendation. So, at least for me specifically, given that we have to submit three, I'm planning to submit one from my supervisor at the medtech company who I work for. He's also the CEO, and another one from a professor who I took 6 courses with. Given that MTM has a capstone project, I wanted to showcase kind of like my ability to work as a team with colleagues, and I was planning to make my third letter like from a colleague that I've worked with in the medtech company. Is this okay or is this not recommended?
I would say not recommended. Yeah, it'd be better to get either another supervisor or another academic faculty member.
Okay,
Yep.
sounds good.
Good, really good question
Yeah.
though.
But if it's that person, like if there's a person at that company that's like a supervisory level, right?
Mhm.
But not dotted, like not straight line your supervisor, maybe like dotted line, like you work on a project that they also oversee, that would be
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah. Like they're like,
Because
let's
usually
say
you
they're
want it
your,
from someone that's
Mhm.
above you,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
Like there happened to be the project manager, for instance, is really common. Maybe you're on a team, they're the project manager, so they actually direct the whole team, but then you have a functional manager as well. That would be a great example.
Okay, thank you very much. And one last quick question. So on the actual MTM application under UC Berkeley Graduate Division, under grades, there is a field called GPA for courses in the major field of study. So within my transcript at the University of Toronto, they don't explicitly mention like the GPA for the courses taken in the field of study. It's just a general one. I was planning to just calculate the courses that were valid for my two majors. Is that viable? Do I need to explain that calculation somewhere else, or should I just stick to the CGPA that they outlined?
Joy,
No,
what do you
you're
think?
good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think like any transcript has like major GPA versus overall GPA, so you're
Okay.
good. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Mhm. The other thing I was going to mention before I switch to GAM here is because it's going to be recorded and a lot of people ask me this, and so I really want it out there. So obviously, you have a rubric that you can go look at on our website that's very transparent. You understand how it's scored. Students often ask me, like, oh, well, what's your percentage acceptance rate? So that really has no bearing. It's not going to be helpful. But what is helpful is we have a cutoff every year. It's a little bit different. But if you are scoring, if you go and score yourself, um, conservatively, if you're getting 3.5 or above on your own scoring of your overall rubric, then I tell you that you really should apply. You have a very good chance of getting in. Okay, we're a growing program, and so we're not based on percentages, but 3.5. If you're getting below that, and it's really a stressor for you to really pay for a fee and really understand, like, is it going to be worth it for me to apply? Then just feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to help guide you with if it's worth it for you to apply this year or if you should wait another year or two. Because just because you apply and don't get in is not going to, be counted against you if you work some more or, take more courses or whatever, volunteer more. We're here to basically help you match to the right program. I also don't say, oh, you absolutely should come to MTM. I can help guide you to other programs that are better fit. We are absolutely here to make sure that you come in and that you're happy with this program, that you feel like it's the right fit, you feel like it's coming to the Bay Area is good for you. But there's lots of other programs there because I work with so many other um, directors like myself across the whole country. Okay. And we all really want students to find their best match. Okay. So I'm happy to recommend others and also ways to improve your own score. So GAM says that they were about to indicate their interest on the essay should they link it to one of the professor's specialization field or the capstone project. They do have fields of interest that match both. Um, I, if you're talking about professors here at Berkeley or UCSF or a capstone project from the past, I would say no, don't do that. So, in what's different is that in a PhD program, that's often really important, right? You're able to link to a professor that you might be working in their lab. The way our capstone projects are chosen every year can be very different. And so it's not going to help you to say, oh, I really want to work on this project because our student cohort that comes in votes of the capstones that are being presented to them. So I try to get 20 or 30 projects that pitch to you. I try to get all of them as viable projects, and then the students vote. So even if you have a great match with a particular capstone from the past, it might not even be pitched to you, or it might not even be voted to you from the student cohort that comes in. And also professors' specializations in our bioengineering department um, typically have little to no bearing about what you'd be working on as a capstone. It completely depends on which professors, clinicians, and startup companies are going to be presenting capstones and pitching to you. So great question, because that comes up a lot. And also for folks that are here that are fairly new, you don't need to come in with your own capstone idea. You're not going to be starting from ground zero. You will be voting on a capstone from a variety of projects that will be pitching to you in the very beginning of August. Um, and those will be projects that have some kind of prototype, lab work that looks like a feasible project, real world, that it's worth spending time to do some investigation on whether there's a regulatory pathway, a reimbursement strategy, etc. It's not worth working on something that's just a concept if we don't know enough about that product to be able to categorize it, for instance, within the regulatory framework. Let's see. Let's see. GPA. Okay, Helen is thanking you, Santiago, about the GPA question. Um, The rubric, you can, right, is the one that is on the admissions rubric. Yes, Sana, exactly. That link that you have there, is the one that is the mtm.berkeley.edu, and then it's got admissions criteria rubric. So that's the one that you want to look at. Okay, so let's open it up further to more questions that people might have on their mind. Again, feel free to put in the chat or, um, turn on your camera and raise your hand so we can see, or we can see a hand raised through through indications on the screen. Oh, there's also one on Q&A. Sorry, we've got Q&A and we've got chat. Are there info sessions in the future with mentors or faculty from UCSF joining the session? I think we're getting near the end, Joy. What does our schedule look like?
Yeah, in terms of info sessions after today, we just have the two office hours.
Right.
One in like 2 weeks, and then one like 2 days before the deadline.
Yeah. And we don't have info sessions with faculty at all, actually, from either Berkeley or UCSF. So Joy and I run the info sessions, and we have students from as our ambassadors that ask questions. So, um, but that's a good question. And so if you are interested in reaching out to specific faculty, you've probably seen, if you haven't already, but in case you don't know, our faculty director at UCSF is Dr. Shuval Roy, and our faculty director at UC Berkeley is Dr. Dorian Leitman. And I myself would be happy to connect you with them or any other UCSF faculty that you're curious about, that maybe you've seen has been a capstone sponsor, or you're curious if they would possibly be a sponsor, anything like that. But then just Nima, feel free to reach out and let me answer any questions for you on that. And Santiago, another question.
Yeah, one last question relating to again the application supporting materials. So in that tab, there is kind of like sections on sampling of relevant written work. I was wondering if you guys had a limit in terms of the, I guess, amount of pages that we can submit for this sample written work, or what would you guys like us to focus on? For context, at least in my case, like I've done a lot of business plans and a lot of business related work, like deliverables for supporting commercialization, but these can get very nitty gritty. They're very long and extensive. And I also don't want to drown the
Sure.
admission committees with all these documents and stuff like that. So what would you recommend like putting here?
I don't worry about the length. People submit, full articles that they've maybe been an author on. Typically, they're really good for reference. Just the readers will just scan through them, or if because it really helps us to know, oh, is this published within a company? Is it published within high school? Is it published within a small team? Is it published? You know what I mean? All those things help us gauge, like, oh, we can quickly scan through and see, is it
Okay.
you as the author, multiple authors? What's the audience? And all that helps us. We can scan through them pretty quickly and say, or if we sometimes dig into particular science, there might be a faculty member go, oh, that's pretty interesting, or one of our folks that has more business background, um, might have some interest in reading a little deeper. So don't worry about
Okay.
that, especially for the added materials. Good question, though.
Thank you.
People have slide decks also that are quite lengthy, maybe 20, 30 slides. So don't worry about it. Let's see, Emily. On the application, there is a place to submit a proof of writing, like a report or something. Is there a recommendation for what this is? Do we have to submit one because it wasn't covered here? Oh, that's correct. Um,
I kind of said that before
oh
that
yeah.
last question.
Joy, do we I don't even remember
Yeah,
that
it's the
being.
supporting documents,
Okay,
supporting
it's the supporting
materials. There is
document.
nothing like that is required. So anything that you feel um, helps showcase your abilities, right? You can submit that there. So that's just
Yeah.
the supporting documents. or
Yeah. And
materials that
so
we just talked over with
yeah.
Santiago.
So what we do
Yeah.
look at and how that attaches to the rubric is where in the rubric it looks for uh, published documents, patents, anything where you've contributed something technically or writing wise. That's where those extra materials would be looked at and then scored in the rubric in that area. Okay, other really good questions. Stanley, let's see, wait, no, first before. Okay, Gam asks again, if I granted with full funded from my company, what should I indicate in the letter of sponsorship in terms of financial award letter? Oh, that's a good idea. Joy, do you know that? Answer that one.
So if your company's sponsoring you for whatever degree that you get into, that's great. We don't take that into consideration when making admissions decisions, though. I
Mhm.
think that's more after the fact, unless I'm getting your question wrong.
Although it does say, I think in the application, it does say, are you getting some kind of financial award? I think so. Um,
Usually that's for like international students that need to prove funding to attend the program.
oh, proof funding. Uh-huh. Okay. If there's questions that come up,
But
Gam, specifically,
yeah,
then feel free to email Joy and I just at the MTM email, and we'll vet it out for you if it needs to be more clarified. And Stanley, and then I'll get back to Sana. Stanley asks for papers that may have not been published, such as a report produced for final projects, for coursework. Would you recommend adding them as supplementary material? Yes, especially if you don't have, say, 3 publications or 2 publications or whatever, obviously in a rubric, then please, then those are great to review as added material. It will help us. And you, of course. Um, and let's see. Anything else? Let's see. Sana, you raised your hand.
Hi, just another question about you said if we score higher than a 3.5 on the criteria. I'm
Yes.
just a bit confused because it seems like the minimum, like if you press a 1 on all of them, you would still get like 6, right? So how does
No,
that
oh no,
specifically
sorry.
work?
We take each of those, I think it's 6 different areas, and then we take an average of all those. So they're weighted equally by the color area. So
Mm.
if you get a 1 on each of those, then you'd score a 1 overall.
Oh, okay, I see.
Yeah.
And then my other question is, let's say if you have published papers that aren't in the space of translational medicine, is it still worth including them or no?
Probably not.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say probably
Okay,
no.
thank you.
Mhm. Yes, other questions. Really, all really good questions. Helpful for everybody to hear too. Okay, since we are past the top of the hour, then um, Joy and I will stop recording. And we just usually, like we always do,